being on. Welcome to Now Faith is TV.
Thank you, Dr. Paulette. I am so honored to be here.
Now Faith is TV, where faith, books, and business collide. Experience the power of faith, now streaming on your TV. Welcome everyone to another episode of Now Faith is TV, where faith, books, and business collide. I am your host, Dr. Paulette Harper, award-winning author, self-publishing coach, where I unlock the power of storytelling for coaches, speakers, entrepreneurs who are ready to write a book that will transform the lives of their readers. I'm so excited today about this episode. I am bringing a friend of mine on by the name of Patrice Sterling. And let me share a little bit about who she is. Patrice is an entrepreneur, advocate, and community advocate and author. And she inspires families to share their stories and leave a lasting legacy. And that's what we're going to talk about today, the importance of families sharing their stories. Welcome, Patrice, to Now Faith is TV.
Thank you so much. I just appreciate being here, Dr. Paulette. It is just a beautiful opportunity, and I thank you so much. And let me just tell you, that intro is fabulous. It is wonderful.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. So share a little bit more about who you are, and then I also want to talk about the advocacy that you're passionate about as well.
Sure. So like you said, I am an author. I am an award-winning best-selling author, and yes, I am an advocate of sickle cell disease. I advocate for families who are needing assistance and support on their journey with sickle cell disease. And really, the whole advocacy piece of my work is what prompted the writing. Writing had always been a love of mine since I was a child. And then, as you say, when books, faith and books collide, you know, it was kind of the same type of experience for me. And it brought together my advocacy and my love for writing.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So let's talk about a little bit more. Let's dive in a little bit more about sickle cell and why that is such an important mission for you to reach people who have it. So let's talk about where that started, and then what has, do you have a program, or how can somebody, if they're dealing with or have that condition, how can somebody, reach you in order for them to, help them, walk them, with them through that process?
Sure. So my association with sickle cell disease started some years ago with a friend of mine, Tania, who really struggled with the disease. And I learned quite a bit from her. But when my husband and I had our son, who's our youngest child, he was diagnosed with sickle cell disease at just 5 days.
Oh, wow.
And it was a devastating diagnosis, because although I learned so much from Tamia, sickle cell disease affects each person very differently. So while there are um, themes or thematic symptoms that everyone or most people will experience, it is still very different for each person. So sometimes when we're diagnosed, and it depends on where you live, it depends on
Yeah.
your healthcare system, it depends on your relationship with your provider. All of those things can be different and can impact the knowledge that you receive, the information that you receive, and the care that you receive. And so sometimes families are struggling. Sometimes they don't know their rights. Sometimes they don't know what to ask. They don't know, who to ask the right questions to. And so that's where I come in. Anyone can reach me at patricesterling.com and reach out on that website. There are a couple of ways that you can click through and contact me, and I will definitely reach out to you and see how I may be of assistance.
Yeah, that is so great. Much needed information. So, is this? Let's talk about your book. Is your book a reflection of what you've learned through sickle cell, learning about sickle cell?
So my first book, Taking My Life Back, is actually reflective of an experience that we had with my son receiving a bone marrow treatment,
Mm.
or a bone marrow transplant for treatment of sickle cell disease. And I talk about how it took us 18 years to get it,
Wow.
which was quite a task. We heard no after no after no after no, yet we continued to push back. We continued to say, no, there has to be a way to do this. There
Yeah.
has to be a yes in this, because our son was just suffering so much. And as a parent, that's just hard to watch. And there's not there's not a lot you can do in the middle of the suffering. There is more to do preventively. But once those crises hit, it is just very difficult to get a hold of it. It's very difficult to soothe them. As a matter of fact, my son had always been just a really mild mannered baby. And when he had his first crisis, he was almost a year old. And I was trying to soothe him. He was crying and crying and crying. He wouldn't stop. And I noticed that his feet were puffy and his hands were puffy. And I said, oh my gosh, I think this is a crisis. So we took him into emergency, and sure enough, it was. But those are the type of things that you experience as a parent or as a caregiver, of someone with this disease. And these are the things that I like to share with the parents and with the family members, to let them know what they can maybe look forward to. Like I said, it affects everyone differently. So yeah, that book talks about our transplant journey, and it talks about immediately afterwards. So just a great story and a great wealth of information. Lots of people were asking, well, what did you experience? How did you find it? How did you get approved? Those type of things. And so I went ahead and put that in the book.
No, I think that that's great because for those of us
Mhm.
who don't know, we just may have heard about, sickle cell, but
Mhm.
don't know the history about it, around it, or even how somebody, is waiting for, you said a bone marrow, and you said it was
Right.
18 years,
Right.
and the fight to get that, I mean, I can't even imagine as a parent, watching your child suffer, and yet there has to be a cure or something to ease the pain, and constantly getting no. But I love the fact that you were resilient in it, you were
Mhm.
steadfast in it, and you even said that there has to be a yes, and you finally got that yes. And I'm just really thankful to the Lord that you
Yes.
did, and then you put it in a book so that families can read on it. And I know that it's different, like you said, from every family to family, and
Mhm.
everybody's response is going to be different. But your book really is a like a guide for them, to show them this is the possibility of the things that's going to happen,
Yes.
instead of just going into it, blinded and not knowing. So thank you so
Oh,
much for
yes.
even writing that. And
For
so
sure.
let's talk about, you talk about the importance of families sharing their stories and leaving a
Mhm.
legacy. And I know that this is your passion, this is your wheelhouse. So let's talk more about that and why that is so important for you.
Sure. So growing up, I remember, a great aunt um, using the method of passing down the family stories, right? The families would come together, and the elders would tell the stories, and that's how we learned it. That's how we kept it. It's kept in our hearts, and then we pass it along to the next generation. Well, nowadays, families are a little different,
Yeah.
and you don't always have the opportunity to share that information. And if you are sharing it, perhaps it's not always received
Yeah.
in a way that you are sure is going to get passed on. And it's just so important to have. And so I encourage people. I in my writing, I began to help folks get their pieces of writing published. And so I started my company, 22 Publishing, really to get those family stories out. And so I encourage people to put it in writing, put it in a book. Don't count on your memory. Don't count on passing it on and you think someone else is going to pass it on. Get it in writing. It is immortal when you do that. The book will never go away. And so this is something that I think is so important. It is continuing a tradition, but
Mhm.
with a twist on it, with that new way of putting it in a book.
Yeah, yeah, I think that that's really great because just like you said, when you know grandmama, great great pass those
Yes.
stories on, they're so valuable,
Mhm.
and so you want to put it in a book so that it's not lost from
Yes.
generation to generation,
Mhm.
and I think that that is so important for us to carry that type of legacy.
Mhm.
So, because if, grandmama has passed and then mama's not really sharing that story, we have that book,
Yes.
that we can give, to our own grandkids or even to our children. And so then they can see the history of where we came from, because there's so much history and so much richness in our culture,
Absolutely.
you know, and we have to have that, and I think that that is so valuable. So what's really been, the results, and then also, the response for, families, wanting to share their stories and
Mhm.
bringing it, into, and, for legacy purposes. What's been the results of families doing that?
Sure. So um, I would say that my first piece that was reflective of that is The Mom's Truth. And
Mm,
it is an anthology um, that I was the visionary on. And there are 16 stories of beautiful women telling their stories about motherhood.
mhm,
Some talked about how they became mothers. Others talked about the interesting challenges of raising Black men in America as a single mom, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Uh, a couple of parents talked about their children coming out as being in the LGBTQ plus community and how that changed the dynamic in their
Yeah.
family and changed, the way that they think. One mom says the child's dad was a minister, and you weren't raised that way, and so it really challenges you when you write. I always say when you write, it challenges you to be introspective. It challenges you to think about you and to think about your journey, because even though this parent was talking about her interaction with her child, it challenged what she believed and what she thought. And that always happens if you sit down to write and write transparently. I talked about even how I deal with my own children and why I'm such a mama bear and why I'm so aggressive, if something doesn't look right or something doesn't feel right. And during that writing, some of that came out for me, that, it all stems from me not feeling protected as a child. And so I overprotect them, and so it was such a beautiful experience and such an awakening experience. And for each and every mom, I mean, they're ready to do the next book. So, so we're going to be doing that. Also working with some gentlemen on the dad's truth. And so I think, one of the young men said to me, I expressed to him that not as many men were coming forth as the women did. Yeah. And he said, he says, it's more difficult, I believe, for men to talk about things like this than it is for women. He says, but I want to talk about it because I want someone else to know that they're not the only ones going through something. They're not the only ones going through this particular experience. I want people to know that there is support. There is someone like you, and I came out on the other side. And so, these are the things that you want to hear, and these are the things that you want to see. I'm working with a young lady who's writing, who has written a book of poetry, and her book will launch next month. And it is beautiful, beautiful pieces about her life and her struggles. And again, how she came out on the other side. So, it's these stories that absolutely will grab you. And you, in that grabbing, you can get what you need, right? Yeah. You can get some strength. You can get some understanding. And you can get peace of mind that, hey, I'm not the only one out here doing this or going through this or thinking this way. That's the whole intent behind it. That's the whole intent. And it's been absolutely beautiful. God gave me this 22 Publishing, the name, the reason behind it, the premise for the company. And so I know that it is truly blessed by him. And I know because of that, others will be blessed. And so that's what I'm excited about.
Yes. So I'm interested in the title or the name of your publishing company. So share that with us. 22 Publishing, right?
Yeah. So 22, first of all, is our family number. Everything happens in 22 for us. So my husband and I, our wedding anniversary is on the 22nd. Two of our girls' birthdays are on the 22nd, or I should say both of our girls' birthdays on the 22nd. And then every single thing we do, the number 22 keeps popping up just over and over and over. And so I began to pray about it, and I began to do some research and found that is a number that means that you are closely connected to God. It is a number that says that you have so much favor upon you. Wow. And I received it. And it was a beautiful understanding and epiphany. And I said, wow, this makes sense. For all that we've been through, it makes sense. And so we're just grateful. And I was talking to someone one day. I'd actually completed a training for publishing. And the young lady that was offering the training says, so you're going to open your own company now? I said, oh, nah. And so months and months and months later, my husband came to me and said, God said to do your own. And I said, oh, I'm going to have to go back and confirm that because I don't know about that one.
He didn't tell you that yet, right?
Right. He shared it with you. So I did. I went back, and I prayed and I listened and very quietly, which is hard for me at times. And so sure enough, and he has just proven it again and again and again since we started it. So that's what's behind 22 Publishing.
Wow, that's beautiful. You know what? Look at God. I think that is just that's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing when when numbers from the Bible,
Yes.
when we have the significance of what it means, it makes it so much more powerful and gives it so much more of an validation to what we're doing and why we're doing it, And I think that is a beautiful thing. So thank you so much for sharing that. Can we go back to your son? Now, how is he doing now?
He's doing well, thank you. He has had some challenges as of late. He received his transplant and was really, really good for like about a year and a half. And after that, he began to experience some crises again. And when that happened several times, they did some more testing and found that his cells are starting to take over the donor cells. And the donor cells happened to be my husband's. He received what's called a haploid or a half match transplant because we could not find a full match donor. And so it looks like his cells are taking over. And I repeat that looks like, because some things sometimes are just an illusion and a distraction. And so we're just believing that those numbers will taper off and that they will even out. And in the meantime, because you don't just pray and leave it. In the meantime, he does take his medication. He does take care of himself. He has started a new infusion medication, and that seems to be helping. So, we have to do our part, right? And just trust God on the rest.
Yeah.
So that's where we are now.
Okay, well, good news, and we'll definitely be praying for him, because I think what you're doing is, hats off to you. You are, you're being really proactive in it, and you're not sitting back just watching. You are, as a parent, you're taking the lead in it, and you're making sure that your son is getting the adequate care that he needs. And then also you're being an advocate for those who maybe experience it now, or maybe they know somebody that is. So thank you so much for being on. I want you to share again, how can people get a hold of you? Because I know that there are people that's going to be listening to this episode that's going to need your information and need what you have to help them get through this process as well.
Absolutely. So I am available through patricesterling.com. If you go to that site, you will see the information about sickle cell disease and how I can help you there. And then if you are not anyone who has been touched by sickle cell disease, but you want to reach out because you need publishing services, again, you can go to patricesterling.com and at the top, click on 22 Publishing. Thank
Awesome,
you.
awesome. No, thank you. Thank you so much for being on. And I want to thank you for tuning in today on another episode of Now Faith Is TV. And we will see you again on this network where we bring you faith, books, and business and how all of those collide with one another.